Welcome, people, and thank you for tuning in. This is the Sports Underground Podcast with Baron Graft.
The revolution will not be televised, not be televised.
And look who's coming up.
Do you know how I get up to my game? Do you know?
I have wrestled with an alligator. I done tussled with a whale. I done handcuffed lightning, throw thunder in jail.
Just win, baby.
That's the winner!
And now, from Hotbox Studios in Burbank, California, which is literally an 8x10 box in Baron's garage, your host, Baron Graft.
Hey, what is happening, folks? It's the Sports Underground. I'm your host, Baron Graft. Sports Underground, episode number 54. The Randy White episode of the Sports Underground. Randy White, legendary Dallas Cowboy, defensive end, linebacker, 9-time Pro Bowl selected, linebacker and lineman for the Cowboys. He was a co-Super Bowl MVP in 1978. Watch out. Randy White, great football player. Got a lot to get into tonight. Once again, just not enough space for everything. Going to talk about Major League Baseball World Series. Going to talk the NFL. Talk about the NBA lockout. Things that have transpired there. College football, and if we've got time, we'll get to the NHL. Just to kick it off, Major League Baseball, the World Series. Thursday night, the Texas Rangers tied up the series 1 game apiece. They eked out a win. You know, this is something. This World Series, these two teams, the Cardinals and the Rangers, coming into this, they were both being viewed as high-scoring offenses. This was billed as, what was going to be an offensive shootout in the World Series, and it has been anything but that. Through 2 games, there's been 8 total runs scored by both teams together. I mean, you're talking about 2 teams that during the championship round of the playoffs, these 2 teams could put up an 8 spot in an inning. Collectively, they've put up 8 runs in 2 games. And both games were decided by 1 run. I mean, look, if you're not watching this World Series, you don't like baseball at all. I mean, that's all I can tell you is if you don't like this World Series, you just don't like baseball, because this is as good as it gets right here. I mean, you had Jaime Garcia for the Cardinals on Thursday night, had a huge outing. 7 strikeouts. I mean, this is a guy they were saying, I might not make it through 4 or 5 innings. Dominant through 7 innings. Allowed no earned runs. 7 strikeouts. 1 walk. I mean, I don't know what you want. I don't know what you want to see. And then, Chris Carpenter for the Cardinals in Game 1 was masterful. I don't know what else you need. You've got Alan Craig as the pinch hitter that comes through in Game 1, had a showdown with Alexi Ogando, the reliever for the Rangers that throws in the mid-90s. Fastball with movement. Craig sneaks one past the Rangers there in Game 1, scored what was the game-winning run. And then Thursday night, Game 2, same matchup, Alan Craig, Alexi Ogando. Craig delivers again, plates the lone run that the Cardinals put on the board on Thursday night. Watching this game, I had a bad feeling about this. It just didn't feel like 1 run was going to be enough, which sounds completely ludicrous to say considering where we came into this series and how these offenses were being viewed. Of course 1 run wouldn't be enough, but in this situation, you're looking at it going, can they make 1 run stand up? I mean, that's something else. There have been great defensive plays in this World Series. I mean, if you didn't see the double play that the Rangers turned in Game 2, Elvis Andrus laying out, the glove flip, the turn, the Cardinals answered. They had a great double play. Maybe we can find some of that on YouTube. We'll check that out. If we can find that on YouTube, we'll get you some links on the YouTube, on the TheSportsUG channel on YouTube. Just great defensive plays. Game 3, the series now shifts back to Texas for 3 games. Look, Texas split with the Cardinals in Busch Stadium, so they clearly have home field advantage now, with 3 of the last 5 being played in Arlington. Game 3 is Saturday night, 8:05 Eastern. Kyle Loesch for the Cardinals, Matt Harrison for the Rangers. You know, it was cold in St. Louis, and that makes it more difficult for hitters. The ball doesn't travel as far. It's been warm down in Texas, and it looks like temperatures are going to be in the 80s during the day on Saturday, so we might see some more balls flying out of the park. It's a little bit more of a hitter-friendly park down there in Arlington. So we might finally see some of this vaunted offense that's supposed to be there. And, you know, one thing I think bears mentioning is, you know, Ron Washington in a post-game interview was asked about, you know, the chess match between he and La Russa. And Washington said as much. He never expects to win a chess match with Tony La Russa. And the interesting thing about the series shifting to Arlington is now playing with the American League rules and the DH. That takes away a lot of the strategy that Tony La Russa typically employs. And I'm not saying that he can't manage in the American League, he can't manage with a DH, but I'm just saying you're not going to see any of these, you know, double switches where he's shuffling his lineup and every time he's changing pitchers and pinch hitting and all this defensive replacements and all that stuff. It's still going to happen, but just to a lesser degree. So I think that to some extent, La Russa's influence on these games is going to be limited by that. And so it's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out down in Texas. I'm still sticking with my original prognosis. I think this series goes 7 games. I don't know. I mean, the other thing I think kind of gets overlooked is everybody's been talking about the Cardinals, and, you know, Derek Jeter once said, and if anybody knows anything about winning in the postseason and winning the World Series, I mean, Derek Jeter knows as much as anybody at this point. And Jeter once was quoted as saying, great teams make it to the playoffs, hot teams win the World Series. And everybody's talking about the Cardinals and how hot they were, you know, coming from, you know, that huge deficit that they had in August and September to come back and win the wild card, and how hot they were in beating the Phillies and then getting past the Brewers. This is the hot team. Everybody's, the hot team's going to win. And I think what people don't realize is that Texas had a pretty good run of their own. You know, it wasn't like they just rolled out the red carpet and said, here you go, Texas, time to go play for the second World Series you've played for in the last 2 years. It's tough to get back to the World Series after going there and losing. I mean, that's not easy to do. That takes some mental toughness to be able to not have a letdown the following season. And this is a Rangers team that had to hold off a push by the Angels in the AFC West towards the end of the season. They had to play Tampa Bay. I mean, you could say Tampa Bay was just as hot as the Cardinals. They did essentially the same thing as the Cardinals, coming back from a huge deficit and getting into the playoffs. The Rangers beat them. They were a hot team. And then Detroit beat the Yankees. Not a lot of people had Detroit beating the Yankees to get to the championship series in the American League. Texas beat them. So I'm just not sure. I kind of look at this as two hot teams are playing each other. And they're very similar. If you look at them, they're very similar teams. And I think it's ultimately going to come down to who executes. It felt like the Cardinals executed on Wednesday night and winning Game 1. It felt like the Rangers executed when they needed to on Thursday night and winning Game 2. So I have no idea what's going to happen, except for I really think this series is going the distance. I think anybody who pretends to say they know otherwise is a fool. But I'm excited. I can't wait to watch more baseball. Got a couple of games left here in the season. moving over to the NFL, which is not even to the halfway mark yet in their season. But man, it goes quick. We're into week 7 already. We're approaching the halfway mark of the NFL season. That's crazy. That's crazy. And, I was all set to tell you about the game of the week, and I was all set to tell you Atlanta at Detroit's the game of the week. And I still think that's a very interesting game, but I have to split the bill for your game of the week. And I have to tell you, I think San Diego at New York, the Chargers and the Jets, suddenly that becomes a very, very interesting game. And it's because of what happened late in the week. Rex Ryan made some comments. Norv Turner made some comments. First, we're going to have the Rex Ryan comment. It was kicked around before Norv Turner was hired in San Diego that Rex Ryan might be hired as the Chargers' next head coach. And so he was being interviewed, and they asked him something, how do you think it would have worked out if you had been hired as the Chargers coach instead of Norv Turner? And this was Rex Ryan's response.
Well, I think I would have had a couple rings. I mean, I'm telling you, those teams were loaded. There is no question about it.
So after hearing Rex Ryan's comments about his team and essentially saying, hey, Norv, if I had your level of talent, I'd have won the Super Bowl by now. So Norv Turner, who's usually pretty soft-spoken, doesn't really ever say anything inflammatory in the media, this was Norv Turner's retort.
After I saw the quote, I didn't have a chance to ask him this, but I was wondering if he had those rings with the ones he's guaranteed the last couple of years.
Wow. Hey, we got ourselves a ball game. All of a sudden, this looked like a pretty decent matchup. Yeah, this is cool. Now we got a storyline, folks. Rex Ryan's never shy to speak out in the media, but for Norv to come back like that, whoa. Way to show some spine, Norv. That's something different. If you're a Charger fan, that's got to be refreshing. Old Norv Turner, he doesn't show a whole lot of spine very often. That's impressive. And I actually think that there's kind of points on both sides of this. There's no question that those San Diego Charger teams have had a lot of talent, and they do definitely play in a weak division, the AFC West. So there's some merit to what Ryan's saying with that of, hey, you're the best team in a weak division. You should pretty much be a lock for the playoffs every year. What's up, Norv? But then Norv, never to be outdone, I guess. Norv fires back because, Rex, he likes to guarantee this year we're going to the Super Bowl. And every year they just don't make it to the Super Bowl. So, this was already kind of interesting. You got LaDainian Tomlinson with the Jets, who was with the Chargers. So this is kind of like a get-back game for him. Now it takes on a whole different wrinkle. It's in New York. I think this is going to be a fantastic game. So if you can get to a TV to see San Diego at New York, I think it's the morning game. Whew, hopefully you're getting that in your region because that's going to be a great game. And then the other game that I do have my eye on is Atlanta at Detroit. Remember, Atlanta had the Week 6 win versus Carolina. And, look, you beat Carolina. That's cool. But now you got to go to Detroit. And Detroit's coming off of the loss to the Niners in Week 6, and this is going to be a real test, right? We're gonna find out a lot about what Detroit's really about right now because this is a tough football team in Atlanta, and their record I don't think their record really depicts how good Atlanta really is, and so for Detroit coming off a tough loss and then playing Atlanta, it's going to be a good test for them. That should be a great game. Sunday Night Football and Monday Night Football is just ridiculous. Indianapolis at New Orleans is Sunday Night Football. Baltimore at Jacksonville is Monday Night Football. These are both just out and out beating, out old school, out behind the woodshed beatings.